video is to demonstrate how to load the Northwind database onto Postgres. And hopefully all the steps are going to be laid out pretty clearly for you. And at the end of the video, you should be able to load Postgres successfully, as well as the Northwind database. This database is the database that we will typically use for demonstration purposes and for in-class exercises. So it's pretty important that you're able to load this. Anyway, the first thing we're going to do in this video is we're going to go into the class Canvas account. And here you will find under Module 3 in Structured Query Language 1, the Northwind PostgreSQL file. And if we click on this file, we'll actually get the option to download the file, which we will do. So the download is started, and it's a pretty quick download because it's all text. So if I do a show in folder, you can see that it shows up in my downloads, and I can open this with Notepad++. And here it is. I just want to close all these other windows. So here is Notepad++, which everyone who's working on the computer science desktops has loaded on these desktops, so you shouldn't have any trouble trying to get to it. This is actually just a little bit of credit that was given to the individual who took the Northwind database that Microsoft produced and actually did a load script in SQL to load it into not just Postgres, but also MySQL and some other databases. This one is good for Postgres. There are separate files that are needed to do a MySQL load or a SQL Server load. As we have already noted in previous sessions, this file is full of a lot of things. It basically sets up our database, and it allows us to it creates all the tables necessary for the Northwind database, and it also loads, later on, loads the actual data here using a series of insert statements, SQL statements. So this is pretty important to note how this file is actually working, because the Postgres server actually will read in this file and do or perform all the commands that are listed in the file. But before we can run it, the file is set up with a default owner, and we're not going to use the default Postgres owner here, as seen here in the red. We actually want to change this to whatever your login is for Postgres, set up for Postgres, which should be the same as your login to the university systems. So one way to do it is to do a search and replace of Postgres, which just happens to be here, and I can replace it with my login ID. Now it's important here to check the match whole word only, so make sure that there's a checkbox next to it, and then you can actually, although I don't recommend this all the time, but in this case we can do a replace all, and we should have 62 occurrences that get replaced as a result. Now all that did was it just changed it so that anytime there's an alter table that's setting the ownership of the table to one user ID, it's actually setting it to a different user ID. So now that we've done that, I can actually save it if I want. And now I'm going to go and open up a PowerShell window, which I just happen to already have open. And make sure that you're in the P drive. And if I type ls, you can see that I have several directories that I've created. you want to go into the directory that you created for this particular class, and the directory name that I used was CS610 SU16, and I traverse into the directory by typing cd space in the name of the directory, and my prompt will change to reflect the directory that I've just gone into. Now if I type ls, which is just to list the contents of this directory, you'll see that there's all of the files that are necessary to run the Postgres server from when we ran the initdb command earlier in the term. So the next step here would be to start the Postgres server, and we do this by typing pg_ctl space hyphen capital D space dot space start. You hit return, and after a moment the last line that you should see is this one, auto vacuum launcher started, and that will let me know that the server has successfully started. Now that we have the server started, I can minimize, don't kill, but minimize the window, and you can see it doesn't go away, it's still there, it's just it's not completely visible. And now I can start up the pgadmin3 application, which is the user interface to the Postgres database. Now I have mine on the desktop as a shortcut. However, if you don't have that, you can just go into the Start menu, All Programs, Postgres 9.4, pgadmin3. And this should start up the pgadmin tool. And once you're in there, you'll see that you have your, under servers, there should be at least one server listed, and this will say localhost, which indicates that you're running the server that is on your machine. If you double click on this, you may be prompted for a password. If you auto save your password, you won't be prompted. And if I open up the databases, well, in our case, I've already done a Northwind database, but I'm going to do it again so that you can see. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to single click on the databases icon here, and I am going to right click, and I should see a new database option in the context menu here. When I select new database, I get a new window, and here I'm able to now enter the name of the database. So I'm going to call this Northwind _new, just so that I can differentiate between the two. I'm going to, from the drop down arrow right here, select my user ID, and I can, if I'd like, put a comment or two. This is the second Northwind database installed on my local machine, and I click OK, and momentarily it will create my new Northwind database, which appears as another database in the list of databases here. If I click on that, it will attach to that database, and you should see some information about the database here, and as well as, I'm just trying to make this a little bigger, as well as the create statement that was used to create the database. And you will notice that the comment is also there. So we have this new Northwind database. Now I need to load the SQL data. So I'm going to go back to my notepad, and I'm going to select all of this stuff in my .sql file, and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to go back into pgadmin3, click the SQL button, and paste all of the data that I just copied into the SQL editor that came up. Now, before I run it, I just want to double check to make sure I'm connected to the right database. I look up in this blue bar up here and it says Northwind_new on localhost here. So I know that I'm connected to the database or attached to the database that I want to be modifying, and I'm on the proper server and all of that stuff. So now that I've pasted, I can click this execute query button, the first arrow, the green arrow. And when I do that, I should get a query returned successfully with no result. I have now successfully loaded, I don't want to save changes, loaded the new database, and I can verify this by right-clicking on the database, click refresh, expand schemas, expand public, and I should see 15 tables, and within those tables I can select customers, for example, and I can see that there's 91 rows in customers, and I can view all the rows by selecting view all rows, and there's my data. And that is how you install the Northwind database.